And now, A Native Podcast with Matt and Zach.
And welcome back to another episode of A Native Podcast with Matt and Zach. I am Zach, and with me as always is Matt. And I got to start it off that way as always and say, hey, Matt, buddy, how are we doing today?
Hey man, I'm doing pretty swell. I'm gonna use the word swell today.
I like that word. Yeah. Sweet and well, right?
Yeah, another one of these guys and taking off, launching another podcast.
Another podcast, another day, another episode, another interview. If you guys haven't read the title, we are interviewing Joanne Gray, who is my grandmother. She's worked in Indian country, what she said, about 40 plus years, 50 plus years,
Long time.
60 plus years, lived in Indian country for a long time. Wolf Point,
Mhm.
lot of experience there. I don't know. I'm excited to talk about this one. Kind of when we talk about people who get us interested in topics. This is another one of those people who are pivotal to us. And I think kind of when we look at these interviews in the beginning, it's kind of those people that our beginning days of our knowledge in Indian country. Who was kind of there, who kind of taught us those ways. My grandma definitely taught me a lot, even though she's a non-native woman.
Right.
She was able to understand the cultures and teach the cultures. And I mean, it was a long interview. We interviewed it and spoke with her beforehand, and it's good. I really like this one, but there's so much more, because it's like we could have asked her about all the tribal events she's been attended to, all the different ceremonies she's been able to see throughout the years too. So there's definitely those things that are in there as well that, when it comes to these people.
Right.
I don't know. Do you have a fun fact for us? Anything to get us started?
Not one of those today, but I was gonna say that with her, it's kind of unique, like you said, her being non-native, but also hitting on the native education kind of is an interesting, like you're hitting a few areas with that with her. And because that's been her focus with her work her whole life. So it'd be interesting to hear the different types of work she's done, which I know she's done a lot.
No, exactly.
Your
And this
guys' family just has done a lot. Like
now, where's the Netflix series? The Gray Family.
The Gray Family. Yeah, like the Brady Bunch or something.
Hiding in the hills of the Rocky Mountains. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. No. Netflix, though, if you're listening, hit us up. gng@gng.net is the email. If you guys have questions, you have somebody that would like to be interviewed, tell their story, definitely send it our way. We appreciate that. Matt checks that about once every month, so don't feel bad if it takes a while that you get a response. Sometimes we're not checking it all the time, but that's okay. We're out here having a good time. Definitely going to take you to the interview now.
Did you know there's a new native apparel company?
No, I did not.
It's called Shop LS 574, named after the 574 federal tribes and the Little Shell descendancy of its founders.
Wow, that's really cool, man.
It is. It is becoming a spot to order native apparel by and for natives, working with native designers and teams to help best represent Indian country.
That's awesome, dude.
For sure. Now make sure to go pick up some A Native podcast swag as well as other native gear while shopping at shopls574.com.
Oh, yeah. And do not forget to use code ANP10 to save on your next order.
That's ANP10. Hey, Matt, did you know there's a tribally owned net company?
No, I did not.
Not only are they tribally owned, but Blue Ribbon Nets also creates totally sustainable products. With Blue Ribbon Nets, not only are you getting quality nets, but even eco-friendly ones as well.
That's awesome, dude.
It sure is indeed. Make sure to use code RUGAROO10 on your next Blue Ribbon Net order to save. Again, the code is RUGAROO10, RUGARU10.
I am definitely getting a Blue Ribbon Net now.
Tune in every Tuesday to hear your favorite native podcast.
That's right. A Native Podcast has new episodes every week, ranging from boarding schools to Indian child welfare.
Not only that, but we have Indian country covered from Maine to California and Florida to Alaska, Hopi to Blackfeet and Choctaw to Tlingit, and all those Crees in between.
And all you other natives and non-natives out there, we want to remind you to tune in this Tuesday to A Native Podcast.
And
Alrighty.
welcome back, everybody. We have our guest, Joanne Gray. And Joanne is very special to me because she is my grandmother. And she has worked in Indian country her whole life, my whole life. And basically, I'm surprised the Little Shell tribe hasn't adopted you in yet. So I'm going to join the powwow committee. So next year we make sure we adopt you into the tribe, because I think that's something that needs to
nice.
happen. So yeah,
Sure. I
yeah,
love
I
it.
think so. But at first, getting started, you want to introduce yourself and kind of what you've done in Indian country, I guess?
Gosh, that will take a little while, but
That's
because
fine.
that's a lot. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'm Joanne Gray, and yes, I am Zach's grandmother, and I'm very proud of that. I am non-native, and I am married to a Blackfeet Cree Little Shell member for almost 59 years. So that gives me about 59 years of being around Indian country, whether it be in cultural events, in schools that I worked with, in family members, just everything. My whole life has been immersed in that. So I think I can attest to a lot of the, especially in education, about some of the needs and some of the misgivings and et cetera, when it comes to Native education. I myself, I am, my grandparents immigrated from, my mother's parents immigrated from Poland and my father's from the Ukraine. So that's who I am. And as you well know, as far as Ukrainians, throughout lifetime, they've been in a genocide position. Uh, a lot of this fleeing their country and getting away and being colonized by other countries, like Russia. So anyhow, I get that experience from inside out. And what has happened to the natives has happened to some of the Eastern Europeans as well. So since I am non-native, I really will not answer this from a native point of view, as far as
Right.
one of your questions was, how does your native culture define you? However, since I've been living on reservations, I've been a part of that. Funerals, weddings, everything. I think I'm more immersed. I have been in the native culture than I have my own, although I will never give up my own, because I'm pretty proud of that too.
Right.
And there's a lot of similarities. My daughters are both married into the Mescalero Apache tribe. Their husbands are enrolled members of the Mescalero Apache tribe. Zach is married to a Assiniboine Sioux, is she?
Right.
And our oldest son is married to a Blackfeet native,
Mhm.
and Gerald is also, my oldest son is chairman of the Little Shell tribe of Montana. So there you go. As far as, yes, I have
Experience.
experiences and just everything in Native culture. I also took that further and began teaching on the Fort Peck Reservation. That was my first teaching job. But prior to that, I just want to tell you a little bit, which I think is kind of interesting. When you say, here's a white woman, white girl, I my first roommate at Eastern Montana College, that's what it was called then, was a gal from the Crow Reservation. I didn't know her. I was just assigned her as
Right.
she was my roommate. And then when I took my first teaching job on the Fort Peck Reservation, my roommate was a Kiowa Apache. And she lived with me. We lived together. She was a teacher. She was a PE teacher in the Wolf Point schools. And I was a second grade teacher at the Catholic school, Immaculate Conception Catholic School. So yes, I lived amongst Indians in many different ways, with a husband and friends and roommates. So that is pretty much my experience, as far as my experiences, how they began with Native people. So if you have any more questions on this, I mean, I can go into now my education experience. However, what I probably would, I'd like you to intercept here. Maybe you have direct me a different way, or
No, I like that. I think definitely the education is good.
Well,
Kind of
should
what
I
you.
go into all the places I've taught in education just to
I
give
think,
it? Good.
yeah, no, I think so. I think that,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, well, I began teaching the second grade in
Yeah,
Wolfport, Montana, and that was a Fort Peck Native
yeah.
reservation. And then I spent 7 years living and working on the Rocky Boy Reservation from 1969
wow.
to 1976, where I taught adult basic ed in the evenings and helped prepare Native adults for their GEDs, which they would take after they had all these classes for a full year.
Right.
During the day, I taught second grade part-time. And then I began to I got the job as a director of the Title I reading and math program at Rocky Boy. For the next 6 years, when we moved to Gray Falls, Montana, I was an office assistant to the firm of Bear Chief and Associates, which was an education consulting firm, a Native American education consulting firm owned and operated by my husband and his twin brother. They traveled and worked with many of the Native schools and agencies throughout the US, whereas I did manage the office, the budget, the travel, telephone calls, all that. So I was in communication with many Native schools that way, and other people that were Native who
Wow.
were working with the firm.
Well, that's a big
Okay,
network because they were all over, right? When you were
all over the
like you're
United
dealing
States,
with Arizona, I remember kind of you guys talking
and
about
Alaska.
Alaska, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, right. Okay, so that was part of that. And then after that, I did get my master's degree in education from Oregon State. We were living in Oregon at that time. And I began teaching reading at two middle schools. I taught at it was Whitaker and Crossler, and at that time I was kind of put in charge of the cultural events that occurred at the schools. They had a TV program every day at 1 o'clock where all the kids. We had a room where we televised things. So I made sure that our students, who were the majority were non-native, they were white students at these schools, were able to connect with different cultures. And I would even bring in speakers, maybe native speakers. I had dancers from the nearby Chamau Native school come in and perform for the kids. And
Wow.
we sort of had a back and forth with Chamawa. So kind of to tie these two schools and kids together and get to know one another. And then after my stay with 9 years or 10 years in teaching in Oregon, which was mainly non-native students, but I then moved to Ruidoso, New Mexico, and we took the job. Gerald was a superintendent at Mescalero Apache Schools, which is like 10 miles from Ruidoso. And I became the director of curriculum and instruction.
Oh,
And
wow.
that really put me real deep into what was necessary for Native kids. Really, what we had to do is take a look at where they were using test scores and the like, and adapting curriculum to fit them, to fit their needs much more than they were. Not just textbook curriculum, but curriculum from their environment and from their cultural experiences to make it more relevant to them.
Oh, wow.
And anyhow, we did this. We worked at this. We had to make sure that the standards fit their curriculum. I also was in charge of the language, Mescalero language program, to make sure we brought the language as much as we could into their classroom. And then they had separate classes where they were taught Apache.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that was an experience. I mean, a very valuable experience, because I took that after my work at Mescalero and moved to Laguna Middle School. And excuse me, the Laguna Department of Education, which was a school run by the Pueblo, located 50 miles west of which is a very busy traveled highway and people going through Laguna. And I bring that to mind here because there was another point in your questioning about certain people who teach on reservations, and I'll get to that at a later point. But when I became the director of instruction and of curriculum and instruction at Laguna, we really worked hard at infusing and integrating a standards-based curriculum that we integrated the culture into it. So it was very well defined and very meaningful to the kids, to the students. A little hard for the teachers because it was a paradigm shift for them. I kind of moved them away from textbooks and more units instruction, more things like learning about their culture, but tying it to a New Mexico state standard, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Right.
Okay. I could stop right here and kind of get my marbles here together.
No, you're fine. You're
Okay.
totally fine.
Am I moving okay?
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
moving good.
Well, there's so much here. Okay.
Yeah, well, and you've done a lot. It's interesting. I'm learning as I'm sitting
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah, no, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, Matt, do you have
Well,
anything?
okay, then, I mean, this is how I worked.
Yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
I was a director of instruction at Laguna for 3 years, a director of instruction at Mescalero, so it was very similar work.
Right.
You're in charge of teacher education, professional development for teachers, and just the instruction of what happens with for the children. In between that, for 9 years, I worked as a consultant for a firm called Relearning New Mexico, and it was we were adjunct faculty with Eastern New Mexico University.
Oh,
But
wow.
it was a cohort group of people who provided professional development for under schools that were in need of improvement in the state of New Mexico, 120 schools, okay?
Okay.
We were there was like 5 of us consultants. We did a lot of traveling, but I solely wanted to work with Native kids. So I was in charge of anything that any of the Native schools, and there are, what is it, 9 pueblos, 16 pueblos. Wait, you have to correct
19,
me.
Uh,
right?
9
I
or
think
16?
there's 19 if you include the one in El Paso, from what Paul told us.
Okay, so 19? I
Yeah.
thought it was 16. Okay. Well,
Well,
I worked with a lot of them. Zia, Zuni,
Right.
Cochiti, San Felipe, Pewaukee, Jemez Pueblo, Laguna, Taos, Santo Domingo.
Right.
All kinds of professional development at those schools. But I was still working for Eastern New Mexico University under Relearning New Mexico.
Right.
And I also had the opportunity to to work with the Gallup School. And the Gallup schools are quite interesting because they have over 30 schools in their district. And I forget what they cover a huge, huge area. I forget the miles, but it's just huge. And with those 30 schools, they were all Navajo children there. Pretty much,
Oh, yeah.
I would say 99% Navajo. So I continued my work with teaching teachers a lot of things such as differentiated instruction, reading strategies, 6th-trait writing assessment, units of instruction, how to assess students in
Right.
a way that was meaningful, not just read I was trying to move teachers away from that, read the chapter, take a test at the end, you got it. No, we
Right.
had things where kids were talking to one another, talking about their learning and how they learn, and pair share, and be able to assess the teaching at the end of each day, so you know if kids got it and who didn't get it.
Right.
And so that was really I could go on and on with the different kinds of professional development that I provided. It's kind of amazing. I still think about all that I was able to learn, but I was also able to learn a lot about the students that we were teaching. I mean, one of the things that I always have said to teachers, particularly, is, you can have all be the most effective teacher, but if you don't know your students, or you don't know the families they come from, you're not going to reach them.
Mhm.
And I kind of go with this by saying, if you expect all Native kids to check in with their homework every night, and you don't know the family style or the family living situation that they come from, you're not going to win. It's a lose-lose situation, because oftentimes these kids, like in Gallup, there are kids that live in a one-room hogan, maybe with 10 members of the family. Asking them to finish their homework
Yeah.
with, 10 other kids in one room. Some of these places didn't even have electricity till just last year, and I'm not sure they all still don't. So those are the things that teachers have to be really aware of. And one of the things I'll never forget, and this goes back to my stint at Rocky Boy, is that we made home visits. We went with a teacher aide who was a tribal member, and not just a white teacher coming into their house and saying, hi, this is me, and how are you? But no, we had the assistant would introduce us and make it comfortable and make the whole situation kind of a compatible situation where we could talk and get to know each other. And that really was one of the best things that ever happened, by just being able to open up that understanding of one another.
Right.
They have to understand you too. They have to trust you.
Yeah.
So with that, it was quite an experience. Another question that you had asked me about, what were the similarities and differences after
Okay.
I've worked with Northern Plains and the Northwest, Southwest. Yeah.
Well, and you've
Really?
lived too in all three
Yeah.
regions, like when
Yeah,
you
I
live
lived on
in
the
Indian
reservation.
country.
Right. So I feel that there are really many more similarities than differences. I mean, no kidding.
Really.
And as I'll say, I always have to, as a non-native, I understand native humor very
Right.
much. And everybody says in it.
Yeah, right.
No, it just, there's so much more. The similarities are really generosity, humor, importance of keeping and valuing extended families, not just,
Right.
so far, first cousin and that. Doesn't stop there, it goes on and on. And that's the beauty of it all. The differences come maybe in, some have power, some don't, and a lot of different cultural activities. The Pueblos, of course, have their lot of religious
Oh, yeah.
activities are centered around actually the church, the Catholic Church, which is what happened, but they honor the saints a
Right.
great deal in their traditional ways, whereas that doesn't happen in the Northwest. Um, I think a lot of the differences also, and of course, in job focuses, it depends on where you're living. The people in the Southwest are going to do different jobs depending on what corporations have come into their communities.
Right.
So that's pretty much it. I would just say that it's more similar than they have more
Yeah.
similarities, and that to divide up their differences, I'm sure you could go anywhere. Even I've gone to the Seminole Reservation in Florida, very similar.
Yeah.
People are very similar. They're all really very kind, very friendly, humorous, and
Family
very
oriented.
family oriented. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's one thing when you say the feast days in the Pueblos. I know Paul Fraua, he's
Yes,
told us
Yeah.
part of the reason was to appease Spain at that time when they were under Spanish rule. And it was kind of like, we're still going to have our ceremony. Sure, we'll make it look like it's St. Michael's Day, but it's actually,
exactly.
our
Exactly.
thing.
I
It's
know
our,
it. I
yeah,
know it. I
it's
know
our harvest, or
the
yeah.
influence of the Catholic Church in the
Oh, it's,
Pueblos came from Mexico, and
it's
yeah,
crazy.
it's really, yeah.
You could
Well,
have
the
almost,
names too. Think of all the names, and people have
yeah,
the Spanish names, the Mexican names.
all of them.
Yeah,
There's a
all of
lot
them.
of families.
Exactly.
Yeah. No,
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I knew that.
I have the conversation
The
with
other
Matt.
thing
Oh,
too,
go
pardon
ahead.
me. Excuse
Well,
me.
I say I have the conversation with Matt that like like Mexico itself, like you don't really have there are indigenous people, but you don't really have them because Spain conquered Mexico. They
Exactly.
were able to
Same thing.
conquer the indigenous, where it was happening there in the Southwest, but they fought back almost, the Pueblo Revolt.
Right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly,
But
right.
go
So
ahead.
as far as history, it's just filled with history. I mean, as you know too,
Oh,
having
yeah.
lived in New Mexico, I mean, it's just, there's so much.
It's a
And
crossroads.
that's it. Yeah, but the other thing is that's what teachers have to take advantage of, is that history for those students to know that about themselves. What a beautiful
Oh, yeah.
story, most of it. I mean, there's many bad things too, and those things have to come out somehow and taught in a way. They need to be remembered so it doesn't
Oh,
happen
yeah.
again, which it could, you
Right.
know.
Oh, exactly.
Um,
I was gonna say real quick before we go,
sure.
with Joanne, your all of your work and tying in the culture into education, I think is so important. And we hear it a lot, Zach and I, in our G&G work with culture as prevention, and especially with like mental health and things with these kids and what they're going through. And I think it's even more today, you're seeing, as you probably know, the cultures being incorporated more and more into the learning and things with like tribal colleges. And it's really great to see all that, because native kids obviously learn differently. You probably know that most native kids are more visual learners too. And I know
Hands on, hands on too.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Gotta say that, yeah.
design. Yeah, and it's not a one size fit all for some kid, from different backgrounds. And I really think that's important. So
I think that's a very important, and that's something I do believe in very wholeheartedly, but forgot to mention learning styles, which
yeah.
is obvious with native children. Just for them to be hearing lectures, forget it. And many of us others, I am not an auditory learner. I'm one that I like hands-on. Then
Right,
you show me and I'll do it. But if you
Right.
just tell me, I won't learn it.
right.
Oh,
And they say
So,
the attention span's only like 20 minutes or
yeah,
something
per age group,
for
yeah,
everyone.
yeah, well, first
You
grader,
know,
probably 10,
probably 10.
yeah. Middle school, 20 minutes, maybe.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
have teachers who tend to want to think they can just lecture for 30. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's the whole thing. That was my whole concept, was to get away from we had a written curriculum. I mean, it was very spelled out to the types of activities teachers could do
Right.
to meet that standard, but they were all hands-on and a lot of visuals and a lot of art
Yeah.
incorporated into it, and just different things. I mean, if I can't remember specifically, but let's just say they were learning numbers, measurement. Well, let's have a baking class. Let's bake some Pueblo bread. And we had the little
Mm.
ovens outside. But we took
Oh,
that at one time. I remember doing this. I mean, I didn't do it, but it was a suggestion. And then
Right.
this group of teachers, native teachers did it. And they took, before the class, they taught the kids measurement and then showed how they measured, which was basically a lot of it just by a handful of this and a snip of this and a little of
Right.
this. But it still taught kids, and it really made it relevant to them. I
Well,
think
then that's
their
that
idea of
bread,
Pueblo
right?
bread is a lot more, pardon me?
That's that bread. That's the here,
Yeah, that's theirs.
you're also teaching them how to make something
Exactly.
in
But
this.
you're
You're not just
also
saying,
learning,
yeah,
yeah, anything that we
yeah,
could do that would you make it, and this should be for all students, make it relevant.
yeah,
If you're learning certain concepts in math is a great place for that, where you just can tie in actual baking or sewing or art, integrating classes like that. That's where native kids flourish. If
yeah,
you can tie that and make their learning interesting. And then the other thing is, I think as non-native teachers who often come to reservations, they're, well, how do I want to say this and be very careful? They need to listen.
mm.
yeah,
They need to listen. They need to listen to the students, and they need to not talk, 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 talk. That doesn't go far. I mean, that immediately is a turnoff. And for most kids, but particularly native kids, especially if you're white, it's going to be, they're going to, they have to be heard. You've got to listen to them. You've got to give them opportunities to flourish. and to start the trust building. And I'll tell you another thing. I remember this distinctly about the Laguna. I had a lot of friends there that were the local people. And one of the things we were talking about was, I remember asking those gals from the reservation, I says, well, why is it that here at Laguna, which, okay, it's on I-40, this is what I'm getting to, what I said way at the very beginning. It's on a very, very busy freeway. People come through there all the time. Okay, it's 50 miles from a big metropolis like Albuquerque. So people who probably can't get jobs in Albuquerque are having a hard time getting hired.
In that school
Well,
district, which probably pays better than surrounding. Yeah.
Yeah, and they always
Billings
think
had the
it's
same
bigger.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, same thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
Hardin and all, right. So what do they say? They say, hey, I'll try to get a job out at Laguna. Well, Laguna's in dire need of teachers because the turnover is so great all the time.
Yeah.
Because it's just not a match. Sometimes it just doesn't work. And they're either let go or they leave. So there they go out to the Pueblo to get a job. And they're going there with not a genuine want to be there. They're just going there to get a job. Well, so they last for maybe a year or two, try to, infuse their thinking into the kids, and it just doesn't work. So they leave. So with the tribal members, they began to see this all the time. So that mistrust began. They didn't trust anyone. They're not going to stay. If you don't stay, you don't like us, you don't want to be here. So you leave in 2 years. So why should we even be, build
even try.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can see why that could happen. And that happens, I think, in every Native school across the country, I'll bet.
Oh, I see it here in the hospitals too, because like Thea was talking to some of her friends, and it's like those they talk about the
Travel
travel
nurses.
nurses are the ones that come in for those short periods of time. And it's like their world is such a small part of even Wolf Point. Wolf Point's not a big place. You can know what's going on in town.
Right,
Like I don't even know what's going on in town. And I don't want to, but like you can tell it's like they keep their bubble so small that their conception of Wolf Point is the hospital. I'm like, well, when you're at the hospital, that's everybody's worst day of their life. So of course you're going to have all these negative thoughts. You got to think outside of that. Like they get stuck in their little, like you're saying, and they can't do it. They can't stay. They say, I got to go. I move on to the next one. And it's like, no, like.
And so there's
you
no
just open up.
compassion between the two, or there's nothing built.
No.
There's no relationship is what I'm
Well,
talking about.
Not at all. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What you two pointed out with both healthcare and with education is you get those fresh out of college, they do their residency for medical, or they do their teaching, their first job.
Yeah.
They put it on their resume. I worked for a diverse community, and it's their launching point. And like you said, there's no building ties with the community and good relationships,
Well,
Oh, totally. You are so right, Matt, on that.
And now we like to take the time to pause and listen to a song on music on a Native podcast with Matt and Zach, where we like to feature Native American musicians and artists and their music. This week, Red Eagle's song of Survival.
We are a people of endurance and protectors of the land, maintaining our traditions, ancient knowledge in our hands, lighting sacred fires, sustaining song and dance, enduring all oppression we would stand. This is a song of survival. Can you get with this? Indigenous revival, a movement of the people, a revolution tribal, just another song of survival. Yeah, you say you just living life, but do you remember where you from? Do you acknowledge all your ancestors and the children yet to come? Have you gained or retained the knowledge that the old ones hold as sacred? The teachings of how to walk in balance, see clearly and release hatred? Why do we emulate what's popular in a society that wasn't built for us, or even with us in mind? So why do we participate in what's killing us? This one's for the artists, the poets, and our followers saving us, the b-boys and graphers, MCs and turntablists. The four elements are like medicine, a cultural empowerment. So keep your YOLO and swag and watch hip-hop devour it. The criticisms out of love for the things I know could be better. Ceremony is the key that unlocks knowledge beyond measure. measure. See, I conjecture a change in the weather. Revolutionaries adorn feathers that have never been idle, manifesting coup through lectures. Colonization, assimilation, try to erase us from this nation, but we stand here strong, singing songs of creation. Raising up our fists, raising up our fists, reaching for the stars, reaching for the stars. Defiant we resist, defiant we resist. Remember who we are, remember who we are. We are a people of endurance and protectors of the land, maintaining our traditions, ancient knowledge in our hands, lighting sacred fires, sustaining song and dance, enduring all oppression we would stand. This is a song of survival. Can you get with this? Indigenous revival, a movement of the people, a revolution tribal, just another song of survival. Spirit over money, teachings over law, balance over power, yeah, the empire shall fall. Manifest destiny, capitalist exploitation of nature, self-destructive destiny manifested through hatred. Be careful, you can become this, don't take this out of context. Impotent rebellion stemming from an inferiority complex. Young one, do what you want, please don't get defensive. Just know what you put in the world has definitive consequences. Change, activist, action is the start, not by the movement of your mouth, but the manifestation of your heart. People say that they don't see us, there's no evidence we're here, but when they look at us, they don't see us, they're only seeing their own fear. No Eiffel Tower here, no ancient towers, none, but listen for a heartbeat, you can hear it in the drum. You can see us in the land, where you stand is where we're from. Been regaining ancient knowledge and the best is yet to come. Raising up our fists, raising up our fists, reaching for the stars, reaching for the stars. Defiant we resist, defiant we resist. Remember who we are, remember who we are. We are a people of endurance and protectors of the land, maintaining our traditions, ancient knowledge in our hands, lighting sacred fires, sustaining song and dance, enduring all oppression we would stand. This is a song of survival. Can you get with this? Indigenous revival, a movement of the people, a revolution tribal, just another song of survival. Raising up our fists, reaching for the stars, reaching for the stars. Defiant we resist, defiant we resist. Remember who we are, remember who we are. We are a people of endurance and protectors of the land, maintaining our traditions, ancient knowledge in our hands, lighting sacred fires, sustaining song and dance, enduring all oppression we would stand. This is a song of survival. Can you get with this? Indigenous revival, a movement of the people, a revolution tribal, just another song of survival. Yeah, you say you just living life, but do you remember where you're from? Do you acknowledge all your ancestors and the children yet to come? Have you gained or retained the knowledge that the old ones hold as sacred? The teachings of how to walk in balance, see clearly and release hatred? Why do we emulate what's popular in a society that wasn't built for us, or even with us in mind? So why do we participate in what's killing us? This one's for the artists, the poets, and our followers saving us, the b-boys and graphers, MCs and turntablists. The four elements are like medicine, a cultural empowerment. So keep your YOLO and swag and watch hip-hop devour it. The criticisms out of love for the things I know could be better. Ceremony is the key that unlocks knowledge beyond measure. See, I conjecture a change in the weather. Revolutionaries adorn feathers that have never been idle, manifesting coup through lectures. Colonization, assimilation, try to erase us from this nation, but we stand here strong, singing songs of creation. Raising up our fists, raising up our fists, reaching for the stars, reaching for the stars. Defiant we resist, defiant we resist. Remember who we are, remember who we are.
And that was Red Eagle, Song of Survival. Thank you. Back to the podcast.
The other thing that
Go
takes me
for
to
it.
this,
Yeah.
having a teacher, I can remember, and I won't give you the pueblo that I was at or the reservation school. He was he disrespected the students very highly and did some things that were just awful. Anyhow, he was doing some inappropriate things
Right.
outside of his outside of the trailer classroom. And he was fired. And lo and behold, I ran across him at another native school. He got hired, but that's what he did. He went down the road. That happens a lot.
Oh yeah.
They keep going because a lot of native schools need teachers. And if they'll just sometimes it's they have to have the teacher because there's 30 kids that need a teacher.
Right.
So that's where that mistrust and that in and out, there's no consistency in their curriculum or in their whole belief system, in their mission statement, in their vision as a school. They need more cohesiveness with staff and
Well,
students.
it's stability at the end of the day. It's providing that, hey,
Totally,
when I
totally.
get to 8th grade, I get to do Miss Martin's, Pueblo bread breaking or whatever. It's that things you're in your development
Oh,
stage, you're looking
absolutely.
forward to, if that person's not there, you're like, I don't know this guy. He might be here for 6 months or a year. And that's another sad thing is it's sometimes 6 months they'll leave in the middle of the school year. It doesn't
Very true.
happen, it doesn't,
Absolutely.
it's sad.
It is
Uh,
very sad. So that's huge with kids. And like you said, I like that what you said that they look forward to that. They know that Mrs. Jones is going to do a baking bread lesson.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember,
And
or the science fair egg drop or whatever, the things that
absolutely.
certain teachers do that others
Yep.
don't.
Yeah, they don't have that, right.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you
oh,
ever, I guess, kind of along those lines, did you ever come across any like pretendians where you had the people that pretended to be native that
oh,
clearly weren't that would come into the communities like that? And
absolutely.
oh,
Absolutely. That would they were white who
would
told
pretend, yeah, the pretendian, yeah.
people they were Indian.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. In the 70s particularly, you still had kind of the hippie group
Okay.
of people that were out looking for jobs, and reservations were the place
Oh,
they wanted. So
interesting.
yes, you had a lot of that, although they were pretty sincere, most of those people. They had good hearts. They
Right.
weren't there to be somebody else. They were who they were. But at the point of other schools, oh yes, absolutely. People catch on to that right away. They think, well, if I say I'm Indian or and of course they always say they're Cherokee and that's it. Forget it. You drop that right away,
Right.
watch out. Here we go again.
Yeah,
You start
exactly.
to play the violin as they, and they'll do that in an interview. But there's a little story about a teacher at Rocky Boy. I was sitting on the interview committee and this guy came in to interview for a 6th grade position, teaching position, and all dressed up, suit, tie, the whole bit, looked just great. Not that that's what we're looking for, but you want to look neat when you come in for
Yeah.
an interview. You're going to be a teacher for kids. And then it was my husband, Gerald, who said somebody came by him the other day and said, "Who's that teacher out on the playground? Long hair and it's got a belt around, kind of a big, not a belt, but sash
Oh,
around
okay.
his waist." And here it
The
was this
hippie
teacher.
sash,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, he turned into a hippie. He really wasn't a hippie.
Oh,
But he
nice.
sure did a good interview, so he was hired, see? And that was, you got people like that. But it just seems like, I believe that schools themselves, the native schools have to be in charge of their own schools, of course, their
Right.
own school boards, set their own guidelines, set their benchmarks for what they expect, and really go through that interview process with a fine-tooth comb as far as have some knowledge on just how you can pick out people who are going to be insincere.
Right.
And that's hard. I used to make a joke and say they should have one of those airport things that you walk through and you can get dinged if you're,
Yeah.
really honest or not honest and
Yeah.
are just
Right.
trying to get a job and otherwise, but that can't happen. Not yet. Um, anyhow, that's where I'm at there. But I'd like to also go back to another thing too. You
Yeah.
said, have you ever experienced negatives as a non-native? Yes, I have. Definitely. Uh, it took me, no matter where I was at, even let's say after 30 years of living in Indian country, around Indian country, to go to a new reservation or a new pueblo, you're still meeting people who have a mistrust. They don't know me. So yeah, I have to be who I am.
Right.
It's not like I have to prove myself, because I am who I am and I'm a genuine person. And so I felt good about that about myself. But when I was at one of the schools, it took me probably a year to feel that they could trust me.
Oh,
And it was really interesting how that happened. In the Keres language, Ishke Hanu means one people. You are number one. And one of the tribal language teachers, he was also on the council, one time at a meeting, he said to me, he says, Mrs. Gray, he says, I'm going to call you, we weren't going to give you a new name. It's going to be Ishke Hanu. You're number one. It was after this full year of kind of trial and error. And I'll tell you, I felt like I had been given
yeah.
a gift of a lifetime. It was a bonding there that was just so genuine.
Yeah.
When I left the job, I felt very bad. I mean, it just, you know, because you got to really know the community so well.
Oh, yeah.
And I
You
still,
didn't want to leave them.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
because I built that trust. So yeah, no matter what, you're always going to have some, and I think it's not a prejudice or anything. It's just a mistrust of white people. I get it.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
Who come and want to, you know, just, always control and dominate. They dominate the conversations. Just go into a classroom, a mixed classroom of Native kids and white kids and other kids, Hispanic, African American, and you'll see the domination is generally not going to be Native Americans dominating the conversation. So that's where, again, teachers have to be really aware of getting everybody engaged and feeling comfortable enough in the classroom to be able to feel good about themselves, that they can contribute.
No, it makes sense. I mean, I remember
Very, very much.
being in Iceland, and we're at this hot spring. It was a very peaceful hot spring, and this American family came in, and it's like we knew they were American. You know, they were like talking and chat. Yeah, I'm gonna go over here. And it's like, do you not see the 30 other people in the pool being quiet? Like,
Yeah, it really is.
it's a selfishness almost of
Well, of
like,
course
this
it
is
is.
my life. I'm gonna live it how I want, I guess. But
Me, yep.
it's a we. There's more. There's not just one. You know.
And
Yeah.
it's a respect, isn't it?
I
It's a respect
witnessed
for each other.
I witnessed a similar thing, Zach, when I went to Mexico, and I went to
Mhm.
Oaxaca, Mexico, which is deep South Mexico. No one speaks English, right? And I know enough Spanish, so I'm like, I'm speaking Spanish out of respect. You know, hola, ¿cómo estás? Yada, yada, yada. And this American family is like mad because they don't speak English. It's like, whose country are you in right now?
No,
Exactly. Yeah.
Catered to, and
Isn't
just
that something? Yeah, I've
drives
heard
me
that
crazy.
too.
that's insane. No, it's
Yeah.
crazy how that is. Like Americans really. I think
Mhm.
Americans are some of the worst people when it comes down to it, and you see it, like you say. Um, I guess that's kind of all the questions we kind of had. I guess the last one was like if you had any advice, but it kind of ties up here. We're floating at the end. We're at about 40 minutes.
Yeah, my advice again is just that earning that respect and
Yeah, right.
respecting each other. And that's so general, but really getting down and understanding the people you are teaching and thinking of it as a privilege
Right.
to be a teacher of those kids, to have them for 6 hours a day. It's an honor instead of a job.
Well,
It's
I
an
think
honor.
when you get older, like you're saying, like it is an honor because it's like you
Any
think about
child,
those people, even as an adult. I look at like my high school teachers or my, those grade school. There's
right?
you still have that respect or that like I can't do anything bad around them. You're a 30-year-old adult. Like you could do whatever you want, but you still have that feeling because they were that in my life because I was fortunate enough to go to good schools and
Mhm.
have stable teachers that were there that you know
Right.
I really appreciate my education. I really do. They were good schools and good teachers that we had. And you don't I don't that's one thing that's hard to relate to, especially like growing up here on the reservations. There's a lot of Filipino teachers they have here at Wolf Point,
Oh, they do.
and they just like they don't like they understand the native culture a little bit. I think there are some similarities. I think that's why they have stayed. A few of them have stayed, but you see some of them and like some of like the white teachers, like you're saying, where it's like they're only there a year and they're
That's
gone.
right.
They're wanting to work in Great Falls or Billings or Bismarck or wherever.
And they're waiting to put it on their resume. And then, like Matt had said, they use it
Yeah.
to say, yeah, I understand reservations. I understand Indians.
I
No,
can work that department. I can
yeah,
check that box for you.
that's right.
It's
I bet.
sad. It
Yeah,
really
it's
is
very
sad.
sad. It's sad. You bet.
But we're not going to end on a sad note.
No.
Kind of at the end of the podcast here, we give our guests kind of what we say the final words. So any final words you may have before we head
No,
out?
I just appreciate that you gave me the time to kind of take a little walk back into my professional life and my life in general. Um, would I do it all over again? Yes, I would. Would I do different things? Probably some, of course. We all learn from mistakes but again, when you get into education and you're educating kids, and particularly kids from backgrounds of poverty and diverse backgrounds,
Yeah.
my advice is just please understand where you're going and be genuine about it. If it's something not fit for you, don't go there. Don't stay there just for money or for, you know, just to check off your time,
Right.
because there's a child's life in your hands.
No, exactly.
My
I mean,
advice. Yeah.
I honestly, we were watching this is last weekend. Adeline, Thea's niece, she's a freshman in high school.
Mhm.
She's a really good they had flag football, really good at flag football. And some of the girls, part of the reason they joined the team was just to go. They know that the flag football team, when they go on their trips, they get to go out to eat and they get to go shopping. And it's like, well, we don't have that. We don't have some of those girls don't have the ability to leave the reservation and go shopping to those places. So they're going to join a sports team to do that, and people don't, like you said, you got to understand where these
Exactly.
kids are coming from,
Right. You bet.
but some of them also,
Anyhow.
because they're just kids. But Matt, any final words from you?
Yeah, no, Joanne, thanks for being on our
Yeah, I
podcast.
hope.
Much respect to you and all the work you've done in Native communities and education and continue to do probably in some ways.
I do.
Little Shell Tribe honorary member.
Yeah,
But,
there we
I
go.
just reflect a little bit back to, the teachers that made a difference in my life. I had one in high school, offered Native American studies for the first time at our high school through Southern Oregon. Through Southern Oregon was what, like a couple credits, but that really helped encourage me, going to Oregon State. And then Zach and I at the Native Longhouse, we had the Lahui White Bear, who was our supervisor, who made an impact. So it just
Mhm.
makes me think about the ones that encouraged me when things
Mhm.
got hard in school, So
It was relationships, wasn't it?
exactly.
Relationships you had with people. That's right.
Yep.
When it was teachers, it was educators in reality. I think when you look at it, same for me. I don't think I take as big of a step into Indian country as I did if I don't take when I first came back to MSU Billings, there was a teacher by the name of Jeffrey Sanders. He got his doctorate in Native Studies down at the University of Arizona, and he was I don't know, I think he taught at MSUB for 20 years, 30 years. It was a long time he was there. And he was even like his last few years, I took his last class. That's like he was at the end of his term, but he was the reason I was like, I'm gonna minor in Native Studies. He
Mhm.
wasn't even Native. The Crow tribe adopted him in as an honorary member because of what he did for Crow people in this college and the relationships there. But you think of those educators, I think a lot of us have those educators along the way that, it's such a thing. Like I say, you should tip your nurses and your teachers.
There you go.
You need to
Mhm.
tip, you
Yep.
don't need to tip the drive-through lady. Like
Yeah.
tip the nurse
You
the
know,
next time she saves you or
yeah, I have one more thing to say, and
yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
basically I forgot to mention this, is the fact that you have to have higher expectations of the students when you go in. And you've
Yes.
got to keep those high expectations. I've seen teachers lower them very quickly.
Mm.
They lower them to where they think they're at, or, as far as learning and just not expecting much from them. Not
Oh.
expecting it. And with Native kids, that's what I've seen. And you can't do that. You've got to have
No
high, you've
way.
got to set high standards for them, just like any other child. And they'll reach them. Every child wants to learn, no matter what. They might come in and say, oh, I don't want to go to school or all this, but they're just saying things like that. Everybody wants a challenge of learning, and everybody wants to be challenged to their highest expectation as well. So that's it.
I like it. I appreciate it.
All right.
Next time. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. See you later. Thanks.
I know ballers, I know chiefs, I know riders from the east. I know educated natives down to picket in the streets. Middle fingers to police, fuck you, we come in peace. I know red skin hippies that be giving me the creeps. I know beauty, I know beach, I know savages and freaks. And I know a couple cousins even bougier than me. No, ain't elite, bougie native, yes indeed. Art exhibit to the club, and we roll it 20 deep. Copper on my neck, gold on my ring. Feather on my hat, skin stitched chin. 100 warriors on my back, they be drumming when I sing. Man, there ain't no way around it.
A Native Podcast is produced by G&G Advertising and Quartz Lake Productions.